don't know where Bun Bun is.
Oh, I didn't see you bring him up.
No, and I didn't use him today. I just noticed he wasn't in my office where he normally is.
Oh.
Good morning. Welcome. Please stand and join me for the first hymn, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing, number 126, and also on the screen. Come thou fount of every blessing, tune our hearts to sing thy grace. Streams of mercy never ceasing, call for songs of loudest praise. While the hope of life's perfection fills our hearts with joy and love, teach us ever to be faithful, may we still thy goodness prove. Come thou fount of every vision, lift our eyes to what may come. See the lion and the young lamb dwell together in thy home. Hear the cries of war fall silent, feel our love glow like the sun. When we all serve one another, then our heaven is begun. Come thou fount of inspiration, turn our lives to higher ways. Lift our gloom and desperation, show the promise of this day. Help us bind ourselves in union, help our hands tell of our love. With thine aid, O fount of justice, earth be fair as heaven above.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane. We're glad to have you with us. UUCS is a welcoming congregation, and we appreciate your unique background, beliefs, or lifestyle. If you're one of our long-term members or visiting us for the first time or been here a short time, we're glad to have you joining us today. And we're glad for the Zoomers and the streamers as well. It is our mission together to create a nourishing liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in the wider world. Or in short, to create community, find meaning, and work for justice. I am your lay leader, Lisa Conger, and Zooming with us this morning is our guest, Dr. Terry Anderson, who will be Zooming with us later. I will more formally introduce him right before he speaks. Please take a few moments now to greet one another and connect. Be sure and say hello to someone you haven't met yet. Thank you. You'll have more time to visit with one another over coffee or tea following the service. We now turn from our informal greeting of one another to formally begin our service by lighting our chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, our openness and inclusion of our community and individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world, and a beacon of hope to those in need. And may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost. Since building community is the theme of this morning's presentation, I am going to share this piece of writing by Naomi Shihab Nye that speaks to just that. You'll have to pardon my mispronunciations. Wandering Around an Albuquerque Airport Terminal by Naomi Shihab Nye. After hearing my flight was detained 4 hours, I heard the announcement. If anyone in this vicinity of Gate 4A understands any Arabic, please come to the gate immediately. Well, one pauses these days. Gate 4A was my own gate. I went there. An older woman in full traditional Palestinian dress, just like my grandma wore, was crumpled to the floor, wailing loudly. "Help," said the flight service person. "Talk to her. What is her problem? We told her the flight was going to be 4 hours late, and she did this." I put my arm around her and spoke to her haltingly. "Shodawa ashubaduk habiti stani shwe min fadlik, shobitsiwi." The minute she heard any words she knew, however poorly used, she stopped crying. She thought our flight had been canceled entirely. She needed to be in El Paso for some major medical treatment the following day. I said, no, we're fine. You'll just get there. You'll just be late." "Who is picking you up?" "Let's call him and tell him." We called her son, and I spoke with him in English. I told him I would stay with his mother till we got on the plane and would ride next to her, Southwest. She talked to him. Then we called her other sons, just for the fun of it. Then we called my dad, and he and she spoke for a while in Arabic and found out, of course, they had 10 shared friends. Then I thought, just for the heck of it, why not call some Palestinian poets I know and let them chat with her? This all took about 2 hours. She was laughing by then, telling about her life, answering questions. She had pulled a sack of homemade mamul cookies, little powdered sugar crumbly mounds stuffed with dates and nuts, out of her bag, and was offering them to all the women at the gate. To my amazement, not a single woman declined one. It was like a sacrament. The traveler from Argentina, the traveler from California, the lovely woman from Laredo, we were all covered with the same powdered sugar and smiling. There is no better cookie. And then the airline broke out the free beverages from huge coolers, non-alcoholic, and the 2 little girls for our flight, one African-American, one Mexican-American, ran around serving us all apple juice and lemonade. They were all covered with powdered sugar too. And I noticed my new best friend, by now we were holding hands, had a potted plant poking out of her bag, some medicinal thing with green furry leaves. Such an old country traveling tradition. Always carry a plant, always stay rooted in somewhere. And I looked around that gate of late and weary ones and thought, this is the world I want to live in, the shared world. Not a single person in this gate, once the crying of confusion had stopped, has seemed apprehensive about any other person. They took the cookies. I wanted to hug all those other women too. This can still happen anywhere. Not everything is lost.
Please stand, join me for Song of the Soul. There's an insert of words in your order of service. along in the madness. There is no sadness, only a song of the soul, and we'll sing this song. Why don't you sing along? And we can sing for a long, long time. Why don't you sing this song? Why don't you sing along? And we can sing for a long, long time. What do you do for your living? Are you forgiving, living in shelter? Follow your heart, love will find you, truth will unbind you. Sing out a song of the soul, and we'll sing this song. Why don't you sing along? And we can sing for a long, long time. Why don't you sing this song? Why don't you sing along? And we can sing for a long, long time. Come to your life like a warrior, nothing will bore you. You can be happy. Let in the light, it will heal you, and you can feel you, and sing out a song of the soul, and we'll sing this song. Why don't you sing along? And we can sing for a long, long time. Why don't you sing this song? Why can you sing along? And we can sing for a long, long time. And we can sing for a long, long time.
Each time we gather as a congregation, there are always those who are with us in our hearts and minds, and who we want to wrap in our love and care. We kindle light this morning, once again, for all those suffering in the war between Russia and Ukraine, and now tragically between Palestine and Israel. Let us share a moment in silence, embracing others who are here in our hearts this morning. You are welcome to say their names aloud as you are willing. Those named aloud and those remembered in the silence, and all those who are suffering elsewhere in our world this hour, we hold in our community of compassion. We have a special collection for our offertory this morning. It's for NAMI, the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill. NAMI Spokane is dedicated to empowering all who have been affected by mental illness through advocacy, awareness, education, and support. NAMI Spokane envisions a world where all those impacted by mental health conditions know they are not alone and are empowered to live their most fulfilling lives. We offer hope and health for people who are experiencing mental health concerns and for their families today as we work to build a stigma-free tomorrow. And if you are feeling generous and you would like to do that, you may put your donation in this envelope, but don't lick the end because we use them again. Thank you.
I'd like to invite any children up for our Time for All Ages. And this story is written by the Reverend Naomi King, different Naomi from the poet we heard earlier. All right, good morning, everyone. All right, we're going to do chairs today. I like that because I can see you. You're on the floor. I'm a little too short to see over the pulpit and see you. I can still see you, though. Once upon a time, there was a family of dogs. Like many dog families, there were dogs who had wandered off the street, and dogs with fine pedigrees, and dogs from the shelter, and dogs who had been born into the family. They ran together, they played together, they tumbled together in great furry masses of tails and snouts and paws. They loved each other very much, even if sometimes they growled at each other, even if sometimes they worried about whether there were enough biscuits from the tin on the counter. They loved each other very much. Each night as the moon rose, the family of dogs went outside and sat in a great circle on the soft grass and watched the moon rise and looked into each other's eyes and wagged their tails. It was a very doggy thing to do. Then when the moon was a dog's tail above the horizon, the eldest dog would bay loudly at the moon. And what do you suppose that dog was saying? The eldest dog was telling the other dogs and the moon and the whole world what he was thankful for. He was baying, "Thank you for this day, for the running and the jumping. Thank you for the biscuits and the tasty treats. Thank you, little brown dog, for nosing the ball my way. Thank you for being able to sing. Thanks for everything." And then the youngest dog would point her nose to the moon and begin to bay. And she was saying, "Thank you, wonderful sun that warmed my back. Thank you, pack of dogs, for wiggly dances. Thank you for the ringing ice cream truck." And then one dog after another would join the baying, saying their thanks, until they were singing together and to the moon. But they saved their best and last howl together. Thank you, mother, and thank you, father. Thank you, sister, and thank you, brother. Thank you, neighbor, and thank you, friend. Thank you, stranger. Thank you, world. We share our thanks for every being near and far, no matter who, no matter where, no matter what you are. Thank you. And they did this, no matter the weather, no matter how many or how few of the family was home, no matter how they felt. The dog family gathered together each and every night to greet the moon and share their thanks. So let's recreate their circle of gratitude this morning. Just repeat after me. Thank you, Mother, and thank you, Father.
Thank you, Mother, and thank you, Father.
Thank you, sister, and thank you, brother.
Thank you, sister, and thank you, brother.
Thank you, neighbor, thank you, friend.
Thank you, neighbor, thank you,
Thank you, stranger. Thank you, world. No matter who, no matter where, no matter what you are. And now please join me in singing the children out to Children's Chapel, and happy Thanksgiving.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
This is the time in our service for meditation, so please find a comfortable, receptive posture and take some deep breaths. These are the words of poet Emily Dickinson. All I know of love is all there is. All I know of love is all there is.
Good morning, everyone. The air is murky, the smoke in the sky, the earth's temperature is not going down. The question, how long as we roll along, can we ride on this merry-go-round? As the earth in orbit smiles at the sun, a few humans are getting rich beyond dream, scooping out fossils and gassing the world as we're splitting apart at the seam. Will you be back from the fire next time, or be gone like dust in the wind? Apart we fall, together we rise. Which way will you go, my friend? Native tribes will meet to decide how their nation will carry on. With 7 generations in mind, those who passed and the ones to come. The time has come to drag you be back from the fire next time, or be gone like dust in the wind? Apart we fall, together we rise. Which way will you go, my friend? Think of the sages, clear-headed inventors who labored to save our days. Just like the folks who come down to this hall, voicing their songs of praise. No need to fear the fire next time. We'll be gone like dust in the wind. Apart we fall, together we rise. Which way will you go, my friend? Together we rise. Which way will you go, my friend?
Thank you, Pam. I'm going to be introducing our special guest speaker, who should be up there in a moment. Dr. Terry Anderson is a longtime Unitarian and is currently a member here at UUCS. Terry has led the current effort to add an interactive web conferencing component to the Spokane services and to help expand UUCS reach and services through the internet. Terry serves on the NAUA board and is currently their website manager. He retired as Professor Emeritus from Athabasca University in Canada. He and his wife, Susan, live in Edmonton, Alberta. Welcome.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Lisa. And a special thanks to Pam. I can't think of a better way to start a service than Bach Cello Suite, so thank you for that. It is a real pleasure to be asked or to be able to speak from this historic Spokane pulpit, although I must confess that the pulpit looks a lot like my office right now, but it's nice to be here with you virtually. And I will now just try to get my screen share here. I'm at the point where I can hardly do a talk without having PowerPoint slides to help me along. So as it said in your program, I'm going to talk about online communities and offline communities and just what is a community and how can we build them together so that they meet our social and our spiritual needs of both the mind and the heart. And I'm going to start with a poem, a Robert Frost poem, and the topic is about two people, or one in the narrated by the person who comes, the second person in the scene, and what they're doing is they're haying traditionally by using a scythe. And what happens is the first person, known as the reaper, goes along with his scythe and cuts down the hay, and then it's left to dry for a few hours, and then a second person comes along to rake it up to protect it from the rain. And I resonated with this poem and with this picture because for well over 10 years I followed the siren song of the Back to the Land movement, and I bought 160 acres in a homestead in northern Alberta and lived there. And one of the one of the chores I did every morning was I would go out with a scythe and I would cut a basketful or two of clover and grass that I would then feed to the rabbits and the ducks and the chickens that we were raising. And this isn't a picture of me, actually. I was way more muscular than this guy, but just kidding. Let me read this poem for you. I hope it resonates for you. The Tuft of Flowers. I went to turn the grass once after one who mowed it in the dew before the sun. The dew was gone that made his blade so keen before I came to view the leveled scene. I looked for him behind an aisle of trees. I listened for his whetstone on the breeze. But he had gone his way, the grass all mown, and I must be as he had been alone. All must be, I said, within my heart, alone, whether they work together or apart. But as I said it, swift there passed me by on noiseless wing a wildered butterfly, seeking with memories gone dim overnight some resting place of yesterday's delight. And once I marked his flight go round and round, as where some flower lay withering on the ground. And then he flew as far as I could see, and then on tremulous wing came back to me. I thought of questions that have no reply, and I would have turned to toss the grass to dry. But he turned first, and he led my eye to look at a tall tuft of flowers beside a brook. A leaping tongue of bloom the scythe had spared, beside a reedy brook the scythe had bared. I left my place to know them by their name and finding them butterfly weed when I came. And I felt a spirit kindred to my own, so that henceforth I work no more alone, but glad with him I worked as with his aid, and wearily sought at noon with him the shade, and dreaming, as it were, held brotherly speech with one whose thoughts I had not hoped to reach. All work together, I told him from the heart, whether they work together or apart. So what I hope you get from that poem is that there are many ways that we form connections, and both mentally and through the heart, with people who we don't have a chance to meet, authors of books that we've read or movies that we've watched. And still we're trying to form human connection, and I will argue that we're trying to form human communities. And that's certainly what we're trying to do here at UU Spokane through our Zoom services and through people watching it. So I'm going to be talking about the 3 stages of soul in cyberspace. What is a community, various dictionary and other definitions, and how can you measure the value of a community? And a particular model that I helped develop called the Community of Inquiry model, and the importance of social presence. Finally, just give you a brief recap of what's been happening in the last year with the Zoom group that's been meeting every Sunday morning, and then end with another model, a kind of a community of worship model. So way back in 1998, I delivered a sermon at Westwood Unitarian Congregation called The Soul in Cyberspace. And this talk was done at a time when I was editing the newsletter, and it was all on paper. A lot of people didn't even have an email address. But basically, I could sort of get a glimpse of what was going to be happening. And so it's been fun for me to reflect on that today and give you some examples of the way the soul is working in cyberspace. And what I call level 1 is what time is choir practice. And that's illustrated by this site below that I all know you're all familiar with, the UCS website. And what this first level is, we use the web to enhance and support the face-to-face congregation. And so you can see all of the things that are here, from the archive of past things, the Sun newsletter, upcoming events, the bylaws, the leadership, what's happening, how you can give money, what programs are coming up, all that sort of thing. And it grows as our archive and our things that we want and need to share with each other. And I know I've heard Todd say that, oh, there's so much information on that website, I can't find anything. But I reminded him that he would have one hell of a lot of trouble, more trouble finding things if he didn't have this website. So level 1 is well and alive at UUCS. And level 2 is, are we meeting at church or are we meeting on Zoom? And of course, Zoom wasn't invented when I first wrote that. But anyways, what the idea was that you can take your pick. You can meet online or you can meet at the church. And it seems like it's a no-brainer. And when the pandemic came along, it was you either met online or you didn't meet at all. And despite all my years of proselytizing for the value of online communities, I didn't have anywhere near the impact that COVID-19 had. And I'm sure that all of you, for both social and religious reasons, have been in many video conferencing sessions. And they obviously they can work. And another example is the Freethinkers Book Club that I've been running for many years here in Edmonton. We used to meet every month in the basement of Westwood Unitarian Congregation. But then the pandemic came, we went online. And then after it was over or diminished, we had a big discussion, well, should we meet back face to face? And we basically concluded that it was a lot easier and a lot more fun and just fine to meet online. So we continued to meet to this day using Zoom. And the third level, which didn't really exist in the 1990s, was when we never meet face to face. And this is an example of one from Second Life where a congregation is meeting, and you can see they have avatars, and sometimes people wear fancy 3D goggles, and they get along that way. And whether you can actually have a spiritual community this way, I mean, I think people are doing it, and it's the debate is about how effective is it, and what can we do to enhance it and to make it a more meaningful spiritual experience for all the participants. And this is Facebook's metaverse. They've been throwing a lot of money at building different worlds. And this is a church called Life Church. It's a quite evangelical Christian church. And I haven't attended any services, but I've walked through the through the site and seen a lot of Bible verses. It seems like it's a very fundamentalist kind of church. But you can see that these are growing, and they support live voice interaction, which at one point it was only text interaction. But I think you were starting to see more of these happen. And they have some advantages, and of course they carry some out-of-body hindrances as well. So it was fun for me to look back and see those three phases, and I still think they're all alive and well today. But it raises the question, are online communities good enough? And I want to emphasize that an online community is not the same as a face-to-face experience. But it has some advantages, which I'll talk about, and it also has some disadvantages. But I start with a quote from Matthew, where Jesus says, "Where two or three are gathered together in my name, I am there among them." And I don't think Christian theologians have kind of grasped what that means. If you gather together, and I'm sure Jesus had no idea what it meant to gather together in a virtual space. But these are the kind of questions that Christian churches are now struggling with. And one of the theoretical insights that has guided a lot of this research is a guy, William Short, developed this theory way back in 1976 when we started talking about mediated conversations. And he called it the clues filtered out. And basically the idea is that if you filter out the body language, you take the voice away, you take away the visual contact, you take the smell, the tactile stimulation. All of this serves to impair the human communication. And it's been a powerful theory, but it really hasn't, there's been so many exceptions that people have found both empirically and in their daily experiences. So, and I'll give you one example. This is a picture of my mother and my father. They met in 1942 in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, and they went out a few times. And then my dad was shipped overseas with the Canadian Army. And he was there for almost 4 years. And in that time, they wrote almost daily letters back and forth to each other, and they became engaged when they were over there. And so they had a tremendous number of clues filtered out. They couldn't, obviously voice was not there, no visuals. They also had the Canadian Army censors reading these letters, at least the ones that originated from my dad. And so you can see that they had a whole bunch of cues filtered out, and yet their relationship developed and grew over those years. And they got married just as soon as they got back, and maybe made up for lost time because my brother was born very shortly thereafter. So pen pals have worked for centuries. It's not the same as the face-to-face interaction, but it can be very effective. So then we look at, what do we really mean when we say a community? And way back in 1955, Hillary published an article where he listed 55 different definitions of the word community even then, and that was before online community was even conceived of. So the definition is elusive, but one of the really interesting characteristics is that people define themselves as members of a community. If you think you're a member of that community, you likely are, at least to some degree. So if we look at dictionary definitions of community, they're quite diverse as well. The first is a group of people living in the same place. And that would be the community of the city of Spokane or the Spokane Valley, or just people who have not too much in common, but they share the same physical space. And the second definition is having a particular characteristic in common. And this could be something like the scientific community, the music community, the Canadian community, all of these various things that they're in a community, but they never meet face to face, or very rarely. And thirdly, we talk about people who have diverse characteristics, but they linked by social ties, they share common perspectives, and they engage in joint actions. And I think that's important that they're working together as well. And that, of course, is the local congregation, as you're experiencing right now as you're listening to my talk. And then finally, there's a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals. And that would be like Unitarians globally, or the Elks Club, or Catholics, or something like that. So there's a broad range of what defines a community. So when people say, oh, you can't have an online community, or they're just as good, or it's not the same as, well, that's true. But there are many different ways to think about a community. But one of the things that's most interesting is community is linked both to a sense of community and to civic and political participation. So you really have to work or think or act together to grow and develop a community. And from a religious perspective, and we think of the role that rituals have. I mean, we're not over-ritualized in Unitarian circles, but even the way we open services and close, and I think are the kind of rituals that help create our communities, our religious communities. And finally, there's a whole bunch of empirical evidence that communities affect the mental health and their sense of well-being. Those who are integrated into communities tend to be more healthy and have more control over their own lives because of their sense of well-being than those who are lonely or isolated. And finally, communities enhance building of social capital. So once you join a community, people get to know you. They start to realize that you're an expert in this and that, and they can call upon you, or they can help you, or they can sort of understand the value that each of us brings by our participation in communities. And this is a quote from a UUA staffer, Reverend Sue Phillips, and she says, "There's no such thing as a Unitarian Universalist by themselves. Our faith is practiced in covenanted community." And my throat sticks when I even say the word covenant these days. But obviously, it's really important for a community and for our faith to have a community to grow and develop that faith or and the benefits from it. And secondly, we are social animals. There's a growing body of evidence suggesting that our evolution with Homo sapiens to have such large brains compared to the size of our bodies is partly of necessity for having to develop thinking and speech skills such that we can get along in community. We've had various aggregations of communities from early hunter-gatherers through the tribes, towns, countries, all different aggregations of the way that we connect as human beings. But communities are not all good. They can breed disinformation and hate, as we've seen cults, Trumpites, flat earthers, conspiracy communities, as well as creating and sustaining energy and commitment. So they're both good and bad communities. But we've shifted, from a traditionally being born into a community to now we get to create and express our identities in the communities that we choose to, which is quite a different evolutionary prospect than just having the community that's within geographic proximity to where you were born or where you live. And for many people, church is a community and is their community. For many Unitarians, the local congregation is much more important than any regional or national denominational activities. And I think we see that now with the push by the UUA to remove the 7 principles and the sources, is that many Unitarians have never even heard of this move. And a lot of them couldn't care less. They say, well, I don't care what Boston says or does. I'm working for my community here. So we have individual needs and rights, and we also have community rights. And they sort of swing back and forth on various focuses. And I think within the UUA now, there's a real move to getting away from the me community, as they say, to the we community. So we're talking about integrating and, the Grow Your Own Theology now. There's a new pilot program, which I can't remember the title of it now, but it's not talking about having your own theology. It's talking about sharing and growing a community theology. And I think that's a very significant shift that many people have been looking forward to, and also many people are very distrustful of. So you might ask, and I've asked, and I did think about it, is wouldn't it be nice if I was in Spokane with you? And we could have a chat after, and I could get a free cup of coffee at the back. And as I've done a couple of times I've been to Spokane, I very much enjoyed it. But if you look, if I were to drive, it would be $400 worth of gas plus 20 hours of driving time. And I must say those are Canadian dollars, not real US dollars, but nonetheless, still a significant amount of money. If I were to fly, it would take 14 hours because there are no direct flights from Edmonton to Spokane, and the cost would be $450. And I can Zoom for free. So I like free, and so that's why I'm giving this talk today from my home. And this is not even mentioning carbon emissions, which I'll get to next. So look at the costs of the greenhouse gas effect of driving, and we find that between passenger cars added to pickup trucks, it's over half of the greenhouse gas emissions are due to the personal travel. And not all of it by any means, but some of it is spent driving to church services. And we can't sort of ignore that and act like it doesn't happen, because it does. So in response to this, one of my, and this is my only international claim to fame, is that I founded and started the very first virtual conference in the world. And by a little background, I was the director of Contact North, a distance education network that did courses mostly by telephone to remote communities in Northern Ontario. And one of the perks of that job was every 2 years I got to fly to some exotic location for the the Congress of the World Council on Distance Education. And that was always a great time, and it was really a highlight experience of my life at that time. But then I resigned that job and was doing my PhD at the University of Calgary. And there was no way that with a young family and the money and the time and the space, there was no way I was going to go to Bangkok to participate in the conference. So I thought, well, I wonder if we could have an international, a virtual conference that could sit on top of this face-to-face conference. And and this was before the internet, but there was a lot of communications networks. There was Usenet, Bitnet, FidoNet. There was lots of email lists. And so I emailed to 5 of the grandest gurus of distance education research and scholarship, and I asked them if they would do a keynote for a virtual conference. And that meant writing a 5 or 6 page essay or paper, and that would be distributed to the virtual conference participants. And since none of them had any idea what a virtual conference was, they all said yes. And we distributed that content. And then for the next 2 weeks, we focused on one or the others of these papers. And it wasn't a touchy-feely kind of a thing, but it was a way to make a real live kind of real-time connection, even though we were using asynchronous and text-based interactions. And now, of course, online conferences are held all the time. The UUA is meeting exclusively online at their next GA. But if you think of the carbon costs, so I did way back in 2010. We looked at one of the first virtual conferences, and it was a conference that was held online. But the previous 5 years, it had been held face to face, and it had been held the previous year in London, England. And they released the list of all of the participants to this conference. It was a conference on supporting blind people, by the way. And they had the names and the addresses of all the 253 or whatever, something like that, number of participants. And fortunately had a grad student who could do the work. And what we did was we calculated how many tons of greenhouse gases were saved by them going online. And we looked at, the airline, of course, but also, the train in from Heathrow and the cost of a hotel room or the amount of, these were rough estimates, but it was interesting. And here's the final results were that the conference participant saved 1.79 megatons of greenhouse gases. And if they had come by air, it went up to 2.21 megatons on the average. And if you think, well, what does that mean? You can see that, unfortunately, Canada is leading the world in greenhouse gases per capita. But we burn close to 20 gigatons a year. And so, over about a tenth of that was used in one 3-day conference, or would have been used if it had been held there. And if you look at the global average, it's nearly a third of what the rest of the world consumed or produces in greenhouse gases, we used in one 3-day conference, or would have used. And if you're in Nigeria, you would have used, more than they use in a whole year on average. So the point is, virtual communities have huge ecological advantages, which will probably become more and more critical as the cost and the environmental cost, but also the physical cost of moving ourselves around increases. So this brings us back to the virtual community. It's not a new idea. This is Howard Rheingold, who was the guy who edited the Whole Earth catalog, for anybody who's as old as I am, will remember. But he started maybe the first continuous online conference called The Well in San Francisco. And he gave a definition in his book, The Virtual Community. He says it's social aggregations that emerge from the net when enough people carry on public discussions long enough with sufficient human feeling, and note the heart action there, to form webs of personal relationships in cyberspace. And what he found, and what many of us experience, and I'm sure you have as well, that there are problems with virtual communities. One of them is anonymity. Is who is this person who says they are this person, or maybe has this kind of a picture? Is that really them, or is that who they wish to be, or who they aspire to be? And we've also had examples of antisocial behavior. Twitter is famous for this, but there's been various studies looking at is why the disinhibition that people have when they go online. But I must say that in my years of teaching online, never really had that happen in a formal education course, and I have never experienced it in a religious context either. But I certainly know what happens. And there's also a freeloading issue, is that people say, well, why should I do all the work when I can just come and benefit from it? And I think we feel a bit that way in the Zoom community, because we get really high quality services from Spokane. And I hope that where our contributions are significant, at least financially. And that's why I'm grateful for the opportunity to give back a little bit through this talk as well. So there's a whole bunch of different kinds of communities that exist online: fan communities, travel communities, consumer communities, special interest groups, gender-related communities, all kinds of different groups. And it's possible because of the long tail of the internet. And what that gets at is, say you're interested in collecting 1920s Japanese postage stamps. Well, there are probably other people in this world who are very interested in that as well. But the chances of you getting to meet them face to face are almost zero. But on the internet, you might make a connection and find that, it becomes a very fulfilling kind of way to share that particular hobby. And you can think of almost anything that's of interest to you. There's probably people who are talking about that someplace on the internet right today. So as an academic and a researcher, of course, it was my job to do more than just pontificate about how wonderful they are, but actually to measure them and count them and figure out what impact it had, and especially what impact it does have on teaching and learning and learning objectives of a formal course. So one of the things that my colleague Randy Garrison and I did was we developed a model, and we called it the Community of Inquiry model, the COI model. And this model has been used, in fact, it is by far the most popular model for both measuring online communities, but also for teachers are using it to teach other teachers how to create an effective online learning community. And I think one of its popularity items is that it's simple. There's basically these three presence: social presence, where you're getting to know each other, getting to be friendly and to care about each other. There's cognitive presence, which is the subject that you're studying, and then teaching presence. And notice it's not teacher presence, it's teaching presence, because there's an implicit recognition that students teach each other at the same time. And the idea is that if you have those three in significant quantities, you will have a positive learning experience. And in our discussion on Zoom after the last talk, of course, it comes out, where's the emotional presence? And well, we can talk about that too. But anyways, those three have survived. And as I said, I must maybe get 7 or 8, 10 notifications from Google Scholar every week that somebody else has used this model for something or another. But of course, academics can't handle anything that's quite so simple as that first diagram. And there's been many additions to it and many tools added to how you measure that, and the different kinds of technology as it's evolved over the last 20 years. But what we found is that the biggest challenge of any online community is creating and sustaining social presence. It's essential for online discussions because it leads to increased engagement, motivation, sense of belonging, and collaboration. And all those are really important to get people to perform and to learn effectively. And I'm going to argue that it's the same thing in a religious community. So how did we actually measure these things? Well, when we developed this model, it was all text-based. We had threaded discussions, and so we felt like it was a gold mine because we had all of these email or discussions, and they were all in text. And so we spent hours and hours looking and finding, well, what's an indicator of a social presence and what's indicators of teaching presence. And we sort of made these up, but then we honed them as we went through thousands of messages and then we got worried about inter-rater reliability or coding reliability, and basically I ended up giving up this kind of research and this particular thing because it was just too much work to look and to try to read these things with any reliability. There's a number of articles that have been coming out where they use these same indicators, only they have AI to analyze both verbal and text interactions among students. So it is easier. And we also have questionnaires so students can assess themselves whether those three presences were there. So what I've come to believe is that a blended model is maybe the most effective kind of a community of worship. And this is kind of what we're experiencing here, right this moment, but also from Spokane, that there's the congregation and the speakers from Spokane give a lot of cognitive presence. They give a real high quality religious experience. And what we can do is we can use that via the internet in ways that work for us. And so obviously there's the person like on the extreme right who's, by themselves, but you could just as easily conceive of a small group or a fellowship that maybe they love to sing together and they like to create services, but they don't have any good speakers, or they don't have a Madeline to sing their hymns for them. So they can, import whatever parts you need, and it has almost zero effect on the main congregation, but it has, tremendous effect for those who are gathered around. And I think as our congregations, I hope they don't continue to shrink, but they are, and as they gray, that we'll be able to use these internet services more effectively. And just to give you a little recap of what's been happening in the Zoom community, I know some of you from the face-to-face in Spokane area have joined us, and I know that some people watch it streamed where they can time shift it. When you join the Zoom community, you can't time shift it. You have to be there, and that means 9:30 in the morning for some, and 12:30 or 1 for people, or people who are in France have joined too, and it's in the evening. So, but we've had a community of 4 to 24 people, maybe even as many as 28, and we've been meeting each week during the past year. This group is smaller than the number who attend the services in person or who watch them at any time. Well, I wouldn't say that about the second service. I think we have way more people on Zoom than there is in the congregation. Not the second service, the first service, sorry. And we have some very interesting conversations after the services. And these conversations are more focused, usually on the sermon, but they're less personal, and they're less superficial in my mind than I ever experienced in after service chats in the church. We have gotten to know each other's ideas, but we have gotten to know relatively little about the personal backgrounds, the profession, what their kids are doing, and we almost never talk about the weather, which seems to be a major conversation topic when you get face to face. So to me, it's been a huge intellectual stimulation. I've also gotten to know some people that we've had the pleasure to go and visit them face to face. And, I'd like to enhance that further by ways to, add a face-to-face interaction. And the cost to UUCS is minimal. I mean, we have to get Todd Millen to pull his hair out trying to bring the Zoom in and out on top of the stream, but it's cost effective, and the benefits to us Zoomers is invaluable because there's many of us around the continent who are very dissatisfied with the trend that, or the move that's been happening within the leadership of UUA. And so this is the Zoom community at Spokane has been really important for us. So judging all the success we had with the community of inquiry model, I said, well, why don't we just throw some letters out? And I haven't developed indicators that you would use to measure these, but just as an idea, maybe we can have a community of worship. And I think there would be social presence and ministerial presence and spiritual and cognitive presence. And again, this is ministerial. It doesn't mean just a minister, but we're looking for wise teachings, for caring relationships, for welcoming and trust, for community engagement, and for growth, both spiritually and cognitively. And the one problem with this model that I've seen right away is that the acronym is kind of bovine-ish mentalities. This is the cow model. Doesn't quite work, so it needs a new name if it's going to take off. But I hope you can see that that's the kind of thing that we need to do, and it's quite easy to do that, or it's easier to do that in a face-to-face congregation. But we're trying to expand our capacities into the online world. So I'm coming to the conclusion that the effective community of worship, it makes both effective use of both place and online communities. And I think you should feel good that the work you're doing in Spokane, because you're actually living it. You have a vibrant congregation, a nice building, but you're also reaching out and reaching hundreds of people, both synchronously in the Zoom session and asynchronously through watching at YouTube. And I think the NAUA is also trying to do that, only we're even more spread out than the Spokane Valley, as you well know. So it's more challenging, but we're trying to think, and as we aspire to grow to that, there will be chapters or meetings that can happen face to face, as well as those that happen online. So let me conclude by saying that, as if you don't need me to say it, but communities are essential for human well-being, and they exist both online and in person. And the online communities have distinct advantages. They're more ecological and they're more cost-effective. They're better at time and place shifting, and they provide opportunities for far-reaching connections and enhanced participation. I get to, talk every Sunday with people from Connecticut and often from Mexico, and people who I would never meet without this connection. And again, over the weeks and months, I really get to know them in a way that it wouldn't happen if it wasn't for this. And they support communities in spite of health-related issues. I know all of us are aging, and the challenge of getting to a church is challenging in the best of times, let alone in the middle of a pandemic. But there are significant disadvantages that come along with it, and they are not the same as face-to-face meetings. And evolutionary, we've grown up with our complete history has been dominated by face-to-face interactions, and so if we have that as the goal or the benchmark, it's not going to be the same as a face-to-face meetings. We also know that, especially both in educational and I would argue in social context or religious context, they take longer to form. Everything seems to take longer when you do it online. Obviously, you have to have technology. Without it, the online community doesn't exist. And they impair, but they do not eliminate affective feelings. So again, just to conclude, good communities, I think, take the best of both of those worlds, and they mesh them as best they can. And I'm going to end with a quote. This is by Starhawk. Many of you probably are familiar with her writings. And she's written, I don't know whether it's a poem, well, it's a paragraph. We are longing to go home to some place we have never been, a place half remembered and half envisioned we can only just catch glimpses of from time to time. It's community. Somewhere there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere a circle of hands will open to receive us. Eyes will light up as we enter. Community means strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter. A circle of healing, a circle of friends, and someplace where we can be free. So thank you very much for your time and attention and the honor of being able to speak from this virtual pulpit. And if you're interested in the slides, I've posted them online for you to look at your leisure. So with that, I will stop my screen sharing and enjoy your coffee and conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Terry. It's really interesting, and it's really interesting to get to know from that side the online community that we're a part of. Please stand and join me for the last hymn, My Life Flows On, an Endless Song, number 108. My life flows on, an endless song, above earth's lamentation. I hear the real, though far-off hymn that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? What though the tempest round me roars? I know the truth it liveth. What though the darkness round me close? Songs in the night it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging. Since love prevails in heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? When tyrants tremble as they hear the bells of freedom ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near, how can I keep from singing? To prison cell and dungeon vile, our thoughts to them are winging. When friends by shame are undefiled, how can I keep from singing?
Our benediction is by Barbara Hamilton Holloway. Go now in peace. Deeply regard each other. Truly listen to each other. Speak what each of you must speak. Be ready in any moment to disarm your own heart, and always live as if a realm of love had begun. So be it. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.